From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Dennis's Heating and Air Conditioning is Northern California's premier heating and air conditioning contractor. From residential housing, large commercial projects, installation to repair, sheet metal fabrication, and everything in between, we are your go-to heating and air conditioning specialist.
Well, the big story for the day today is going to be another round of thunderstorms, and we could be looking at some pretty strong thunderstorms for parts of Northern California, in particular in the mountains. We'll take a closer look at where that is here in a bit with Futurecast, but of course, less thunderstorm activity today. And you know, this is something that I've been seeing here, but we just kind of got to get through today. And then after that, I think we're going to see a lot less thunderstorm activity here. Cooler temperatures the rest of this week, not to mention this weekend and into next week. Now, today is a little spike in the temperatures. Could even touch 100 degrees in some spots here, but after today, those temperatures will start to drop a bit with no major heat waves in the forecast expected anytime soon. So let's take a look at the smoke, and you know, we're still seeing it from the Smith River complex. It's kind of pushing to the east, and then it kind of pushes south after that and dissipates. But overall, most of the smoke has been in western Siskiyou County, Del Norte, and northern Humboldt counties, with some of it making its way to Trinity County at times as well, but hasn't really made its way into the valley. So of course, most of that smoke is just in the vicinity of really where most of the fires are. Hour by hour, the rest of the day today, you can see we're in the upper 90s. Now again, it's not out of the question for some of us to maybe touch 100 degrees today, but overall I think we'll be in the upper 90s for most of us in the valley today. And for the mountains in the 70s and 80s, really mainly in the 80s for those highs, right? You're talking about mid to upper 80s, not quite reaching that 90-degree mark. So let's talk about the chances for thunderstorms. Well, number one, we've got this cooler air here that's going to keep our temperatures down, but we've got some heat off to our east, which may have a bit of an impact on our temperatures here later this week. But let's talk about those thunderstorms now as we go into this afternoon. You can see it's mainly going to be in Trinity County that we're starting to see thunderstorms develop. We've also got some activity, looks like in Modoc County near, say, Fort Bidwell, not to mention out near Cedarville and even just north of Alturas, maybe some activity developing there, but not much activity outside of that at this point. But then as we go into about 6 p.m., we're really starting to see very little activity trying to develop here in the extreme east. It's, again, Trinity County, northeastern Humboldt County, western Siskiyou, and into Del Norte County. This general area here, in fact, mainly where the fires are, is where we're seeing the bulk of the activity. Now, this is good for the sense that the rain is something that will be good for it. However, the bad part of it is, number one, lightning strikes, and number two, gusty, erratic winds can come from these thunderstorms. So this is it just sometimes doesn't feel like we can catch a break sometimes, because as you can see here, even at 9 o'clock at night, we're still seeing a little bit of activity here near the Smith River complex. But then as we go into the evening and overnight hours, looks like the extreme eastern mountains is now seeing a chance for some activity here around Alturas, Cedarville, maybe even Susanville as well. And then to the west of that is fairly dry. You'll notice we're just not seeing much in central and eastern Siskiyou County. We can't rule out that chance, but it looks like most of it will be to the west and east of Siskiyou County. Then looking at Friday for tomorrow, looks like we're getting a break finally. And as I mentioned, less thunderstorm activity in the forecast after today, because even as we go into Saturday, it looks like continued dry and conditions and no more thunderstorms. And taking the extended outlook here, all the way through next week, nothing really happening. However, I am seeing that sometime toward the end of next week, we could see maybe an area of low pressure off to our west, which could help to bring in some activity here as we go into the end of next week. That's a long ways out. A lot will happen between now and then. In fact, yesterday I was telling you about the potential for some of that monsoon moisture kind of coming on in. So again, we're seeing some kind of discrepancies within the long-range forecast models. But I also want to talk about the temperatures, because, you know, we are going to see those temperatures try to increase. You know, the heat that's over the eastern United States, that's kind of expanding back over our region, at least to our south. But what's preventing this heat from coming up over us is this right here. And this really has been our saving grace, this type of pattern, all summer long. We've seen these pockets of cooler air, these troughs of low pressure over the Gulf of Alaska that kind of, in a sense, kind of keeps that heat from building in. And that's essentially what's happening here. Now that will start to kind of move off into Canada, but we've got another area of low pressure, another pocket of cooler air that's going to be to our north and west that'll keep this heat from moving on in, and that's keeping our temperatures at bay. But remember, was showing you that toward the end of next week, we could be looking at the potential for some clouds and some rain. That's this right here. This area of low pressure could help to spark up some shower, maybe even some thunderstorm activity. But that's, again, over a week away. So we'll kind of watch that pattern. Temperature-wise, though, remember I was talking about, we're not going to see major heat waves. And that's the case. We're pretty flatlined here for the next 10 days or so. I mean, after today, after the spike, temperatures kind of leverage out in the mid-90s, give or take, for the valley, and of course, mainly in the 80s for the higher elevations. Here's a look at your forecast for today. Now, what you'll see here are dry conditions for the valley. I've got dry conditions elsewhere. Now, this is where we could see later this evening and tonight chances for some activity. Now, later this afternoon, Alturas, you could see some thunderstorm activity. But overall, we're not seeing a lot of activity in the eastern mountains this afternoon. It's this evening that the extreme east could see some activity here. Now, for this afternoon, Trinity County, I think, is going to get hit the hardest. Then we'll hit western Siskiyou County as we go into the late afternoon hours, and then eventually Del Norte. You'll see a lightning strike there in Garberville. Honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be in southern Trinity County and then kind of in this general area here. South, I don't see it happening. So Garberville, you're just going to warm up, but you're not going to quite see the chances for those thunderstorms moving on in. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. And yeah, we're talking about that chance for showers. I've included that for Mount Shasta, but again, even those chances are pretty slim. It's mainly Alturas and Susanville, especially this evening, that could see some activity. As I mentioned, Alturas, you could see some thunderstorms this afternoon, but after that, no more thunderstorms in the forecast, at least for the next 7 days and even beyond. Looking at your 7-day outlook for the valley, we're not seeing any thunderstorms, but what we are seeing is a bit of an increase in our temperatures today before we see another dip in our temperatures by the end of this week and through the weekend.